Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you please just describe a little bit about who you are, what your business is, where you're located?
Yeah, my name is Chris Pearson. I'm one of the co-founders at Three Beacon Marketing. We primarily help direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands in the health and wellness, sports and outdoor, and pet supply space.
Nice. And can you talk about a little bit about where you were before working with Axo Leads versus where you are now in terms of your lead generation with cold outbound in particular?
Yeah, so roughly speaking, before we started working with you, Sergio, and Axo Leads, we'd spent about a year trying to run cold email lead gen on our own.
Yeah.
We got inconsistent results. Being one of the co-founders, our time was being spent in other places, operations, marketing, fulfillment, client management, all that stuff. And it just trying to generate leads while also running a business is kind of tough. So when we realized that and kind of got honest about it, that's when we started looking for companies like your own, Sergio. And then when we talked to 3 or 4 other companies. And then when we had a call with you, I don't know if you remember this, but you had filmed a video somewhere on YouTube, I think. And I saw that and I was like, I want to talk to this guy. He feels like a good guy. So thankfully and luckily we talked to you and we got on your calendar to work with you. So, and yeah, that's kind of like the last year before you guys is just a struggle to try and get leads with cold email.
So you first heard about us through a YouTube, or what was the first touch point?
I think the first touch point, Aaron, my co-founder, he had a video sent to him because of you or something like that. So there was some kind of organic connection there, and then he forwarded it to me, and I watched it. And I was like, we need to talk to this guy. Like this, we gotta do something with him. So I think that was the first one, and then after that, I think Aaron booked a call, and that's when we started talking.
Yeah. Cool. So that makes it a little bit different from if we had just necessarily like cold outreached you. But did you have any like doubts or fears, or had you already pretty much decided that you were going to work with somebody, and or what was that about? Like, how would you choose one person over, all those other inboxes flooding? I mean, all those other emails flooding your inbox.
Yeah. I guess to back up a little bit, now that you mentioned that, Aaron sent me the video of you because I believe he booked a call with you and said, "Hey, we're talking to you." So just to fix that, because now that I think back, it was a cold outreach. You did cold email Aaron. I think you got a hold of him. And then he sent me the video saying, "Hey, I just booked." So sorry for saying that incorrectly, but that essentially was the process. I'm on the front end. I do the sales and like all the client stuff on the front end. So things are flying by me all the time. So I'm like, oh, cool. We're talking to somebody. But like I said, when I saw the video of you of that, I think it was a thank you video of like, "Hey, thanks for booking." I was like, yeah, I want to talk to him. So yeah, so that's that situation. And then for looking for other companies, we'd already decided that we needed to give this to somebody. We needed to delegate. Because as a business owner, people are watching this, you probably get it. You have to essentially make decisions on what you want to delegate, automate, or just get rid of. And the lead gen part of it that was the part we wanted to delegate and hire an expert like you, Sergio, because we can get the system set up, we can send the emails, we can write the copy, we can do all that stuff. But the intricacies, the nuances, the messaging, you are so tapped into the market that we're trying to reach that we were buying your system and your knowledge and your wisdom in what you were doing. So that's something that just helped us a ton when it came to making that decision. Because a lot of people had close or similar offers, but that nuance that you had with what we were trying to do, that was like the big winning point.
Okay. And did you have any sense of what it was in the past that just wasn't working, or was it just not working?
I think it was one, the list that we were using, and two, the offers we were making. So because of the time constraint, I wasn't spending as much time as I needed on the offer and looking at the responses and like communicating with the market from a lead gen standpoint. When it comes to fulfillment and keeping those relationships with clients and keeping people for a long time and like helping them with their marketing, from that standpoint, absolutely, we're thumbs up. We're good at that. But when it came to actually understanding what those founders and people were trying to reach actually had in their inbox and what they were dealing with on a day-to-day basis, from a lead gen standpoint, that's the piece we were missing, that nuance, right? And then also too, we were trying all different kinds of offers. Some worked, some didn't, but it's just super inconsistent. So those two things are what we expected and suspected that it was. And that was basically why we made the decision to start talking to people who are experts. Mm-hmm. Because just as much as these brands are coming to us for help with certain types of marketing, we need to reach out and get help in that way too, for those reasons.
So you mentioned basically that you needed to get lead generation off your plate, like you had decided that this is just something that you were going to outsource. So I imagine time constraint was one of the main focuses that you guys had. So with that being the case, could you describe your time commitment required on your end for our partnership? Like what responsibilities have you had to have? Like what haven't been able to take care of and take off your plate?
Yeah. So I think the biggest, at least for me, the biggest one was the tech side of it, is just setting up the inbox, setting up the emails, managing that process, making sure deliverability is good. All of that is, for me personally as a founder, more on the big idea, like sales, like trying to get people to buy into things. On the tech side of things, it was just annoying. Having to check that daily, having to do that on a week to week basis. And if anything kind of went wrong with a domain or something, I was just like, okay, I've got to look at spreadsheets and tech stuff. And it just annoyed the hell out of me. So that was a huge thing that was taken off my plate because of you. The other piece with the time commitment communicating with you, we do our weekly calls. And then also too, you guys were really cool about when I came up with ideas or after a sales call or something, I would get a transcript, pull out the main points and say, hey, this was an awesome lead. Here's what we talked about. And I could just give those ideas to you and you would either run with them or say, hey, that market's too small. We can't really do anything with that. Or this is actually a real cool idea or an angle we can run with. Let's try it. And also too, you're coming up with your own as well. But being able to take the information that I was getting and give it to somebody and let them run with it, that was huge because that's deep thinking, that's deep work. And in sales, as much as we want to glorify or put it on a pedestal, sales isn't really technically deep work. It's more emotional, surface level talking. And that deep work of coming with an offer that actually connects with somebody, giving that to you was huge. So those two things, tech and then offer creation, were like the two big things.
Yeah, I would say that that's been really beneficial and it's been really helpful for us too. So honestly, I love that you come with us with that so that we can put together a strategy for you that is based off of the market feedback and what you're seeing on your current calls. So honestly, happy to do that.
Yeah.
So since partnering, have you had any major wins or milestones that you have achieved?
Yeah, so I think it's the first full month, which is like month 2, like 1.5. You had booked us 5 or 6 calls, I believe, and then of those calls, 4 of those were hyper qualified. They were fantastic. The other one, as it is with cold email, some of them get through that aren't. But the one like perfect, absolutely amazing client that we did talked to her on a Wednesday for initial discovery. Talked to her on Friday for a follow up and talk contract and everything else. She paid on Saturday. And then Tuesday we did our onboarding, and then Thursday we're doing a strategy call. So literally within less than a 2-week period, we went from cold email to a client, talking to them, paying, and starting the process with them. And I think Montana on your team, she mentioned, hey, this is like the fastest we've seen somebody close a client. And yeah, that's true. But also, cool, great. I'm decent at sales. But the other part of it was the quality of client that you gave me to sell, to like talk to. That's like 80% of it. So that was a huge win for us, and we really appreciate it. We just enjoy the back and forth and figuring out who the actual client is and how to make it quality. Because if you get somebody in the door, whether they're cold or not, if they're bought into the idea of how you actually do things, frankly, they're easier to sell, right? Because they're already there. You just have to kind of show them where to go, as opposed to try and convince them to even talk to you.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Chris.
Yeah.
So are there any results that you've had that like have been surprising to you after partnering with us, or just anything about our process or anything that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, after trying it for a year and not really getting anywhere, and then giving it to you within like 2 months or less, we closed the deal because of you guys. So, being in marketing for a little over 10 years on the like direct consumer side for e-com brands, doing B2B, while it is marketing, is a little bit different. So like struggling with something for a year and like, wow, this doesn't work. Maybe what everybody said about cold email is true. Like it doesn't work. It can't work. It's just this thing that people sell to try and get money out of you. And then you come in basically month 1, month 2 and say, nope, it works. Here's a close. We closed a deal for $4,000. That lady I talked about that we closed in basically 2 weeks, that was a $4,000 a month deal, roughly $48K a year. If we can keep her for 12, which we usually do. I think our client retention is around 14 months on average. But so we're expecting 48K out of that one, if not more upsells. And that to me, just, it kind of shocked me. I was like, oh, wow. It took a year to figure out that I need to delegate. And then I gave it to you, an expert, and it worked. Like that was probably the most surprising thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you, Chris, Aaron, 3BM have been amazing clients in our experience. So do you have any pieces of advice that I would really value for you to have for any of our other clients, just to get the most out of our services and our partnership?
Yeah, I would approach, or at least we've tried to do this with you, Sergio, and the team, is approach it as a collaboration. Because I know we've hired vendors before and contractors before and things, and we've approached it before and learned this lesson the hard way, is even if they're contractors, vendors, etc., treating it as just a service provider is probably the worst way to go about it, because they're coming in, they're trying to help your business, they're trying to get to know who you are, what you do, who you serve, things like that. Right. And kind of pushing them off and saying, we're going to keep you on the outside and just treat you as a service provider. We just need X, Y, and Z result, and we're not really going to collaborate with you. It's a waste of money at that point. because you're not really investing into the relationship. So something like we talked about earlier of me being able to come off a sales call, give you ideas from or the transcript itself, and then the ideas that I pulled that I heard, and then whatever you go take away from, collaborating in that way makes the investment better. Like it just makes your job, I wouldn't say easier, but it makes it more effective with what you do because you're getting a feedback, you're creating that feedback loop.
Correct.
I would say, yeah. And I would say, as a founder, as somebody who's running a business, fulfillment, acquisition, retention, fulfillment, all the pieces, all the things that are on our table, making sure to collaborate is like the huge thing. And that's something you've allowed us to do because it just makes it easy because you take what we give you and you run with it. You're like, hey, here's ideas, here's the thing that's working, here's what's not. And there's no contention of like, is it working or not? It's like, yeah, we'll get it to work. Just keep that feedback loop going, keep talking, keep collaborating.
Yeah, amazing. That's amazing advice that I 100% agree with, and I'm really glad you said that for our existing clients. Do you have anything that you would say to somebody who might be on the fence about working with us?
Yeah. So I'd ask maybe two questions. What's the reason for you being on the call with Sergio or like somebody like you, right? Like, why are you here? And honestly answer that question. Either something's not working, you've made decisions that have led you to this point, or you're making decisions that have caused you to say, hey, I need help. So that's the first one. Like, let's be honest about that, the past and how it's happened. And the future is, if you keep making those decisions, are you going to end up 6 months down the road in the same place you're in now by not working with somebody like you? So like those two things, the past and the future, you're in the present, like what do those things look like with your current decision-making process? And if you don't like where it's going to be in 6 months, like make a decision. I heard this, roughly speaking, this phrase is, if you're stuck on making a decision, don't make the decision, make the decision right. So make the decision and then turn it into the right decision. Like you can't fix something or make it better if you don't have feedback. So again, if you're making decisions, you're stuck and you're in this spot, you're talking to Sergio or the team, in 6 months from now, those same decisions are going to lead you to the same spot. So change something.
Well, I'm really grateful that you made the decision, Chris.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that you answered all these questions for me, and spoke to me about this. Is there any last thing you would like to share, or you're pretty much good?
I think just call out the people who are running companies and like talking with you. It's tough. It's hard. It's not easy. Not everybody does it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And it gets easier. I wouldn't say easier. You get better at running a business the more you collaborate with people that are experts, that are better at youth and stuff. And being able to accept and acknowledge that is the reason why we have been able to grow the way we have, is because we're working with people like you, Sergio. Because we can't do everything. We're not experts in everything. So going and collaborating with those people and like bringing them in and saying, hey, let's be part of the team and do this. That's the one thing internally that I would say, like, call out for people is like, you need help, ask for help, get results. Like collaborating is the way forward. It's not competition, it's collaboration.
Perfect. I really appreciate that, Chris. Thank you so much for taking this time. Honestly, like I was saying, you have been an amazing client. So I'm really happy to be able to have helped you in any way. And I look forward to, hopefully collaborating further.
Yeah. Thanks, Sergio.